Assalamu alaikum, guys. I'm here to talk to you today about the mega trend that is big data. Now, when we think about value, and Rachel's excellent presentation was a great segue into this, is because big data is going to power the next generation of development for humankind. When we think about big data, before we get into big data, I actually want to talk to you about something I really enjoy eating, pies. Have a guess, in the US, what is the most favorite pie, a 30-centimeter pie bought in the US? Apple pie. And 10 years ago, that would actually be the correct answer. Then the supermarkets actually did something very interesting. They launched an 11-centimeter pie, a much smaller version. And it turned out Apple was not everyone's favorite choice. Because when you buy a 30-centimeter pie, you actually have to share it amongst all of your friends and your family. So it turns out apple pie is everyone's second favorite pick. So why am I interested in that? So I work for a consumer healthcare company called Reckitt Benckiser, which has also got into infant nutrition as well. But I also am affiliated with Startup Bus, which is the most intense startup hackathon in the world. Startups such as Instacart, which has recently been valued at $3 billion, have started on Startup Bus. I was based in Sydney working for Reckitt Benckiser, and now I'm actually based in Amsterdam. And what I actually do for Reckitt Benckiser is work in the digital space, trying to map out where our consumer data, our media data, our internal systems data all mesh together so we can actually unlock value and commercialize this. So I always get asked this question, what is big data? And what is big data, as well as what makes big data big? Now, the volume, I'm here to tell you, is that the volume of data is irrelevant. You could have all of the data in the world, and if you did nothing with it, it would not matter. Let me draw an analogy for you on that. You could be a country with, let's say, 60% of the world's crude oil, but if you had no refineries and no petrochemical engineers, the value of that crude oil is nothing. So what big data is actually, it's the right time business insight and decision-making at extreme scale. So what we're going to talk about is, over the next coming slides, is the 5 V's of big data, specifically velocity, variety, veracity, volume, and finally, value. But before we get into this, how did we actually get here? I'm going to tell you a bit of a personal story of the journey of computers through a personal experience. So back in 1993, my dad bought us our first computer, which was the 386. And back then, we were on MS-DOS. There was only thousands of apps available and zero internet. By the time I get into high school, dial-up internet launches, there's tens of thousands of apps. I waste a lot of time at internet cafes playing Counter-Strike against all my friends, which is kind of nerdy, but I had to do it. And then by the time I've moved into university, Facebook launches, the Apple iPhone launches, and there's billions of users of computers and mobile tech. And then this is also when the cloud launches as well. And now we've moved into this realm, and this is not even looking into the future, this is today. Now we have what's called ambient computing. And my 4-year-old daughter asks our Alexa device at home every single day, Alexa, tell me a joke story. And no joke, Alexa has not repeated a joke as yet. So this is what we have today in terms of data usage across users. So going back to the 5 V's of big data. So we're going to break down each V, and I'm going to break it down to you in the sense so you can actually apply this within each and every one of your fields. So firstly, just to give you perspective in terms of how the volume of big data or the volume of data has increased over time, back in 1992, we were producing only 100 gigabytes of data per day. Your standard iPhone has about 128 GB of data. So we weren't even producing an iPhone's worth of data back in 1992. Today, we produce over 50,000 gigabytes of data per second, or 400 one of these babies every single second. You've kind of seen different iterations of this slide over the course of today, but Google, for example, people are using Google to do over 3.6 million searches per minute. The Weather Channel is getting over 18 million requests for data every single minute. And there's over half a million Snapchat images sent every minute as well, half of which I think is actually coming out of Saudi Arabia, by the way. But anyway. Next is the velocity of data and the speed in which the data is being created, processed, stored, and analyzed. The modern car today has over 100 sensors built into it, looking at everything from fuel usage and consumption to the engine wear and the wear and tear of other parts of the vehicle. But this is not even going into this autonomous car or autonomous vehicles that have even more sensors and systems running on them. And as of last year, there were already close to 19 billion devices connected to the internet. So that's over 2.5 connections to the internet per living human being in today's world. So you can imagine the amount of data that is already being created. So next, we're going to spend a little bit of time discussing variety of data, and this includes text, sensor data, audio data, video data, and click streams and log files. I'm going to break this down in a little bit to give you a bit more perspective in terms of how you can apply it to what you're doing. So before we do that, there's two types of data. You have structured data versus unstructured data. When we're talking about structured data, imagine an online form with first name, last name, and email. Those are identifiers that you can actually classify that data with. And then you have unstructured data, which is Facebook posts, or tweets, or Instagram posts, or video content. And the problem that we have is that 90% of the data is actually unstructured, which is why we need all of these tools to actually process it, decipher it, and extract the value from it. And what I'm actually trying to do within my business is, in a consumer business, is develop this single view of the customer. So not only do I sell products to individual consumers, what I want to understand is what are their media habits? What television channels do they actually watch? What social media are they sharing on? What gaming systems or platforms are they actually buying into? So with this data, what we're trying to do is create much better products and services to best serve our consumers. Next, and the final V here, is veracity. And by veracity, we actually mean the uncertainty and the quality of data that actually goes into your systems. So to simply put it here, is if you have bad quality data going into your systems, you're going to have bad quality outputs coming out of your big data platforms. And finally is value. And this slide has been shown to you before earlier today as well, in terms of the world's largest companies today, like Uber, Airbnb, Facebook, and Alibaba. These are all tech companies that are valuing their data and processing their data and extracting value from it. And what's funny is none of these companies existed when most of this room was born. So you can see the fundamental shift in business in terms of where this is all going. So what can we actually do with all of this data? So the use cases of big data over time, I fundamentally believe, is going to increase. Every single one of your industries is going to be impacted by the data that we actually already have. And my specific picks, in terms of seeing massive development over time, is healthcare, where in the developed world, where we see massive wastage of healthcare, and reducing that waste, and in the developing world, where we can get more people access to more healthcare. But more specifically, what can you do? And this is a slide that details to you what a data scientist does. Data science is a combination of computer science, mathematics, and domain expertise. And personally, I'm not a data scientist, but I do love mathematics, and I do love marketing and the field that I work in. But there's nothing stopping you from being an expert in the data that actually goes into your industry. And that's what we're actually going to discuss in my workshop tomorrow. But what I want to leave you with is that, with all this data, with all this power that we now have, it means not much, because we still need vision and human insight to keep solving the world's problems. Thank you very much.